Ainsley Brennan had 4 minutes to convince someone, anyone, that she was worth saving, or she would become another statistic by spring. The girl's hands moved in perfect rhythm on the stranger's chest. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Repeat. Her wrists screamed where the bones had healed wrong. Her vision blurred from exhaustion and pneumonia and 9 months of not having enough to eat. But she could not stop. Would not stop. 8 minutes. She had been doing CPR for 8 minutes. The teenager beneath her hands, oversized Hell's Angels jacket, dark hair splayed across frozen concrete, remained still. Too still. The kind of still that Ainsley had seen before in another hospital room with another woman she loved. Around them, 30 people stood in a circle, phones out, recording, watching a 17-year-old homeless girl fight death on a Saturday morning while they filmed it for strangers on the internet. Not one of them had dropped to help. The thunder started low, distant. 6 feet 2 inches of tattooed muscle, Hell's Angels road captain, patches visible on the cut he wore over his jacket. 40 years of living showed in the lines around his eyes. Combat scars marked his knuckles. Cole Dalton had seen wounded people before. In Fallujah, in Ramadi, in field hospitals where boys barely old enough to vote bled out on canvas stretchers. He knew what survival looked like, what it cost. This skeletal girl sitting on frozen concrete, oversized navy hoodie 3 sizes too big, 91 pounds at 5'4", looking closer to 14 than 17, because starvation does that, makes you smaller, makes you disappear, had survived something. Multiple things. The kind of things that hollowed you out and left only the core behind. Cole moved slowly, deliberately, the way you approach something wounded that might bolt. He dropped to one knee in front of Ainsley, never breaking eye contact. Then he shrugged off his leather jacket and draped it around her shaking shoulders. The jacket was huge on her, warm from his body heat. It smelled like leather and motorcycle exhaust, and something Ainsley had almost forgotten existed. Safety. 24 hours earlier, the brick wall outside Riverside Roastery held exactly 3 hours of warmth on a good day. Ainsley Brennan had claimed her spot at 6 that morning. By 9, the February cold had seeped through the discarded coffee cup she pressed against her chest, through the navy hoodie with the burn hole in the right sleeve, through skin stretched too tight over ribs that showed even through layers of clothing. 28 degrees. Wind chill made it feel like 18. She watched them, the Saturday morning crowd. Young couples in matching winter coats, holding lattes like trophies. Elderly men with newspapers folded under their arms. College students with textbooks and earbuds. Insulated from the world by education and youth and the blessed ignorance of never having been hungry. They walked past Ainsley like she was invisible. Maybe she was. 9 months on the street had taught her that invisibility was a skill. Head down, eyes averted, make yourself small. Do not ask for help more than once from the same person. Do not make eye contact. Do not remind them that you exist, because if they remember you exist, they remember their own failure to help. And people hate being reminded they are not as good as they pretend. The door opened. A young couple emerged. North Face jackets, his navy, hers burgundy, matched like uniforms of the comfortable class. The woman laughed at something on her phone. The man carried 2 coffee cups, steam rising into cold air. Ainsley stood, her knees cracked. Everything hurt now, even standing. "Excuse me," she said, voice rough from disuse and cold exposure. "Do you have any spare?" They pulled away, actually recoiled, like she carried disease. Like poverty was contagious and they might catch it if they stood too close. The woman's smile vanished. The man's arm went around her waist, protective, as if Ainsley posed a threat, as if a 91-pound girl with duct-tape shoes and a cough was dangerous. They walked past, fast, did not look back. Ainsley sat down, made herself small again. Rejection number 1. The elderly man was next, 70 maybe. Gray cardigan, pressed, slacks, wedding ring, worn smooth from decades of marriage. He walked to the door, saw Ainsley, and his face hardened. He did not speak to her, did not acknowledge her humanity with even a word. Instead, he walked inside and approached the barista. "Is she allowed to be here?" His voice carried through the morning quiet. He spoke about Ainsley in third person, as if she were not sitting 15 feet away, as if she were an object, not a person. She makes customers uncomfortable. The barista, 23, art school dropout, still believed the world could be kind, looked at Ainsley. Their eyes met. The barista's held apology, but she said, "I'll handle it." The old man nodded, satisfied. Returned to his coffee and his newspaper and his comfortable life where homeless teenagers were problems to be managed, not people to be helped. Rejection number 2. Ainsley pulled her knees to her chest. The hoodie, men's extra large, stolen from a donation box behind a church 3 months ago, hung off her frame. Her pink sneakers had been her mother's once. Grace Brennan had worn them jogging. Now they held Ainsley's feet together through Ohio winter with creativity and desperation and the kind of repairs you make when new shoes cost money you do not have. In behind her chest, something that used to be hope was dying. The college girl came out next. 20, maybe 21. Social work textbook visible in her canvas bag. Make a difference pin on her jacket lapel. Hair in a neat ponytail. Future bright and planned and paid for by parents who loved her enough to pay tuition. Ainsley tried again. "Excuse me." Softer this time. Less demanding. More begging. Hating herself for it, but needing it anyway. "Do you know of any shelters with space? I'm studying." The girl did not look up from her phone, did not even glance at Ainsley. "I can't help you." 3 words that encompassed everything wrong with the world. "I can't help you," said by someone whose entire education was built on the premise of helping people. Someone who wore her compassion like a costume, but refused to wear it when it cost her comfort. Rejection number 3. Ainsley's hand shook, not from cold, from something breaking inside that she did not know she still had left to break. The church group came out at 8:43. 4 women, 50s and 60s, matching t-shirts, Faith in Action Ministry, printed in cheerful yellow letters across navy blue cotton. They carried travel mugs and pastry bags and smiles that came from lives lived in safety. Ainsley heard them talking, planning, organizing, a homeless outreach event. The irony was so thick Ainsley could taste it. She stood one more time, her body protested, everything protested. But she stood because this was it. This was the moment. These women literally planned to help homeless people. Surely they would help the homeless person in front of them. "Excuse me," Ainsley's voice cracked. "I heard you talking about outreach. Do you know about shelters? I've been trying to find—" The leader turned, late 50s, perfectly styled gray hair, wedding ring and gold cross necklace, and the kind of face that had never known hunger. She looked at Ainsley, really looked, took in the duct-tape shoes, the oversized hoodie, the way Ainsley's collarbone jutted sharp beneath fabric, the dark circles under her eyes, the rope-burned scars visible on her wrists where the sleeves pulled back. The woman's expression shifted, not to compassion, to judgment. "Honey," she said, and the condescension dripped like poison. "Handouts don't help. You need to take responsibility for your choices. God helps those who help themselves." The words hit like fists. Ainsley stood there, silent. Because what do you say to that? How do you explain that you did not choose this? That your choices were escape or die? That responsibility looks different when you are 17 and your mother is dead and your guardian is a monster? You do not. You do not explain, because people who say things like "take responsibility for your choices" do not want explanations. They want absolution for their own inaction. They want to believe that poverty is a moral failing, so they do not have to feel guilty for walking past it. The church women walked away, discussing their outreach event, planning to help the homeless. Just not this one. Not the one in front of them. Not when it required actual effort instead of organized charity that made them feel good about themselves. Rejection number 4. Ainsley sat down, made herself small, wrapped thin arms around her torso. Inside her backpack, waterproofed plastic bag, everything she owned, was a notebook. Pages filled with her mother's handwriting from years ago. CPR instructions, anatomy notes, things Grace Brennan had taught her daughter because she believed knowledge was armor. And newer entries, dates and times, words Ainsley had written verbatim because she knew one day they might be the only proof she had that she was telling the truth. The notebook was evidence, documentation, insurance against the day when someone finally believed her, if that day ever came. The door of Riverside Roastery opened again. A girl stepped out. 16, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a leather jacket too big for her frame, Hell's Angels patches visible, clearly borrowed, clearly loved. She carried a coffee cup and a smile meant for someone on the phone pressed to her ear. "Yeah, Dad, I know." The girl laughed. "I'll be home in 20 minutes. Love you too." She took 3 steps. Her hand went to her chest. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the icy sidewalk. Ainsley saw it in slow motion. The way the girl's eyes went wide, the way her knees buckled, the way her body hit concrete with a sound that would echo in Ainsley's nightmares for months. Around them, people stopped, stared, pulled out phones. Nobody moved to help. 30 people, Saturday morning rush. Every single one of them reached for their phone to record instead of their hands to help. Ainsley understood something in that instant, something about how the world works, about how people can witness suffering and still choose comfort over courage, about how easy it is to film tragedy, but how terrifying it is to touch it. Her oversized sneakers scraped concrete as she scrambled to her feet. The shuffle became a sprint, 40 feet covered in seconds that felt like hours. Her backpack bounced. Her broken wrist screamed. Her lungs, already fighting pneumonia, burned with every breath. She dropped hard to her knees beside the girl. Her hands were already moving into position, already lacing together, already finding the spot her mother had taught her when Ainsley was 12 years old. Grace Brennan, ER nurse for 15 years before the car accident that took everything. Grace, who had taught Ainsley CPR at the kitchen table because you never know when you'll be the only one who can help. The training dummy sat on their kitchen table like a dinner guest, plastic and rubber and utterly lifeless, which was the point. Grace Brennan pressed her hands to its chest, demonstrated. Her movements were practiced, professional, the movements of someone who had saved lives and knew the weight of that responsibility. 30 compressions, Grace said. Her voice was warm, patient, the voice of a mother teaching her daughter something important. 2 breaths. Repeat. You don't stop until they breathe or help arrives. Ainsley, 12 years old, still small for her age, gangly in the way children are when they have not yet grown into their limbs, tried to mimic her mother's movements. Her arms shook after the first set of compressions. "It hurts," Ainsley said. "Good," Grace smiled. "That means you're doing it right. Saving a life should cost you something. If it doesn't hurt, you're not pushing deep enough." "But what if I break their ribs?" "Then you break their ribs and they live. Better a cracked rib than a stopped heart." Grace guided Ainsley's hands, positioned them correctly, showed her the rhythm. 30 and 2, 30 and 2, the beat of staying alive, because the universe had a dark sense of humor. "Why are you teaching me this?" Ainsley asked. "I'm not going to be a nurse." "Maybe not." Grace sat back, looked at her daughter with eyes that held so much love it was almost painful. "But one day somewhere you might be the only person who can help. And when that moment comes, I want you to know what to do." She reached behind her, pulled out a stethoscope. Old, well used. The rubber tubing cracked in places from years of service. "This was mine in nursing school," Grace said. She placed it around Ainsley's neck. "Now it's yours, not because you have to be a nurse, but because I want you to remember you act when you're the only one who can, sweetheart. Even when you're scared, even when you're not sure, you act." Ainsley touched the stethoscope. It was heavier than she expected. "What if I mess up?" "Then you mess up trying to save someone instead of standing there doing nothing. I can live with failure. I can't live with not trying." Grace pulled Ainsley into a hug, held her daughter close. The kitchen smelled like pancakes and coffee and safety. "Promise me," Grace whispered. "Promise me you'll try, no matter what." "I promise, Mom." The call came at 3:15 in the afternoon. Ainsley was in chemistry class. Midterm review. She remembered that detail later, in the moments when her brain tried to hold on to normal before everything shattered. The principal appeared at the door, spoke quietly to Mr. Crawford. Both men looked at Ainsley. Her stomach dropped. You know, you always know. Some part of your brain recognizes the shape of bad news before your conscious mind catches up. Ainsley, the principal's voice was too gentle. You need to come with me. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and death. Grace Brennan was already gone by the time Ainsley arrived, dead before the ambulance reached the emergency room. Single-car collision. The car, Grace's sensible sedan, only 3 years old, meticulously maintained, had gone off the road on a curve she had driven 1,000 times. Brake failure, the police report said. Icy conditions. Ainsley stood in the hallway, numb, trying to process that her mother was dead, that the woman who had taught her to save lives could not save her own. Marcus Whitmore arrived 20 minutes later, 40 years old, clean-shaven, reading glasses perched on his nose, khakis and a polo shirt. Grace's boyfriend of 2 years, the man who had slowly moved himself into their lives with the patience of someone playing a long game. He cried when they told him. Actual tears. Ainsley watched them run down his face and thought, those look real, but his eyes were dry. She noticed that, filed it away. The tears were on his cheeks, but his eyes were calculating, measuring, already moving to the next thing. I'm so sorry, Marcus said. He put his arm around Ainsley. She stood rigid, did not lean into the embrace. We'll get through this together. The police officer approached, young, apologetic. He held a clipboard and the kind of face that said he had delivered bad news before but never got used to it. Single-car collision, the officer explained. Brake failure. Lucky there weren't other cars on that road. The weather, it was 45 degrees today, Ainsley said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears, hollow. The report says icy conditions, but it was 45 degrees. There was no ice. The officer looked uncomfortable. The road was wet. Could have been. My mom checks her brakes every oil change. She's meticulous about car maintenance. Ainsley caught herself. She was meticulous. Marcus's hand tightened on Ainsley's shoulder. Not comforting. Warning. Accidents happen, Marcus said. His voice was steady, calm, the voice of reason. Sometimes there's no explanation. Sometimes brakes just fail. But Ainsley had seen the officer's face when she mentioned the temperature. She had seen the flicker of something, doubt, maybe, or recognition that the story did not quite fit. The officer left. Marcus drove Ainsley home. He stayed the night, said he did not want her to be alone. Ainsley went to her room and cried until she had no tears left. She held the stethoscope her mother had given her and whispered promises into the dark. I'll try, Mom. I promise, no matter what. She did not know then that trying would almost kill her. 1 week after the funeral, they met with the attorney. Grace's will was simple. Everything to Ainsley. The house would be sold. Too many memories, too many bills. But there was insurance. A life insurance policy Grace had taken out years ago when Ainsley was born. $180,000. Beneficiary, Ainsley Grace Brennan. Trustee until Ainsley turned 18. Marcus Whitmore. The attorney explained it carefully. The money would be held in trust, used for Ainsley's care, education, future. Marcus would manage it, but every expense would be documented. Every withdrawal would require justification. It seemed reasonable, safe, the law protecting a minor's inheritance. Ainsley watched Marcus's face as the attorney spoke. Watched the way his expression stayed neutral. Practiced. The face of a man who knew he was being observed. But his hands shook slightly when he signed the paperwork. Ainsley noticed that too. The first month was almost normal. Marcus moved into their house officially, started sorting through Grace's things, making changes, small ones at first. A new coffee maker because the old one was falling apart. New sheets because these smell like her and it's too painful. He was attentive, caring, made dinner every night, drove Ainsley to school, attended parent-teacher conferences, played the role of guardian with the dedication of someone who knew he was being watched. But there were moments, flickers of something else beneath the surface. You're getting heavy, Marcus said one night at dinner. Ainsley had helped herself to seconds. You should watch what you eat. Your mother would want you to stay healthy. Ainsley was 5'4" and weighed 115 pounds, perfectly healthy for a 16-year-old. She put down her fork. The next week, Marcus confiscated her phone. "You're spending too much time on it," he said. "It's not healthy. You need to grieve properly, not hide behind a screen." He went through her contacts, deleted numbers, her friends, her mother's friends, anyone who might check on her. "For your own good," he said, "you need space to heal." The isolation started slowly. So slowly, Ainsley did not recognize it as isolation. Friends stopped calling because they could not reach her. Teachers were told Ainsley was struggling with grief and needed space. Marcus attended school meetings alone, painted a picture of a troubled teenager who was acting out, pushing people away, refusing help. By month 3, Ainsley was alone, completely alone. The first time Marcus hit her, Ainsley was questioning a withdrawal from her trust fund, $8,000. Gone. The bank statement arrived by accident. Marcus normally intercepted the mail, but this one slipped through. Ainsley found it and did the math. $8,000 for what? "It was for the house," Marcus said. His voice was calm, reasonable. "Repairs. You wouldn't understand." "What repairs?" Ainsley, warning in his tone now. "I'm managing your money responsibly. You need to trust me." "I want to see receipts." His hand moved fast, grabbed her left wrist, squeezed, hard enough that bones ground together, hard enough that Ainsley gasped. "You will not question me." His face was 2 inches from hers. "Do you understand? I am taking care of you. I am doing your mother a favor by being here. You will show respect." He released her wrist. Ainsley stumbled back. Her arm throbbed. "I'm sorry," Marcus said immediately. His expression shifted. Remorse. Concern. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm just stressed. Losing Grace, taking care of you, the money. It's a lot. I'm sorry." Ainsley nodded, backed away to her room, locked the door. The bruises on her wrist turned purple, then yellow, then faded. But something had changed. The mask was cracking. She could see what was underneath now, and it terrified her. The basement was never meant to be living space. Storage room, 8 by 10 feet, concrete floor, one tiny window near the ceiling, 6 inches wide, barely enough for air. Exposed pipes. Single bare light bulb, controlled by a switch on the outside. Marcus showed it to her on a Tuesday. "You've been disrespectful," he said. His voice was calm. That frightened Ainsley more than if he had yelled. "You need time to think about your behavior." He pointed to the stairs. Ainsley looked at the basement door, at Marcus, at the front door 20 feet away. She ran, made it 5 steps before Marcus caught her, his hand in her hair, yanking back. Pain exploded across her scalp. She screamed. He dragged her to the basement stairs. She fought, clawed, kicked. It did not matter. Marcus was 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. Ainsley was 98 pounds of terrified teenager. He threw her down the stairs. She landed on concrete. Left wrist took the impact. Something cracked. Agony shot up her arm. Marcus came down the stairs, slowly, each step deliberate. "You will learn," he said, "to obey." The door closed. The lock clicked. Darkness. Ainsley sat in the dark and cradled her broken wrist and understood with perfect clarity she was going to die here, unless she found a way out. The routine became nightmarish normal, fed once a day, usually around noon. Whatever leftovers Marcus felt like giving her, sometimes a sandwich, sometimes just crackers and water. 400, maybe 500 calories. Enough to keep her alive, not enough to keep her healthy. Bucket in the corner for a bathroom. Emptied once a day if she was lucky. Mattress on concrete floor. Single thin blanket. Ohio winter turned the basement into a freezer. Ainsley slept in all her clothes, shivered until exhaustion dragged her under. The light was controlled from outside. Sometimes Marcus left it off for days. Sometimes he left it on until Ainsley could not tell if it was day or night anymore. Time became fluid, meaningless. Her weight dropped. 98 pounds became 95, then 92. Her hair started falling out. Her period stopped. Her body was shutting down, conserving energy, preparing to die. But she documented everything. The notebook in her backpack, hidden under the mattress when Marcus came down, filled with dates, terminum, exact quotes of things Marcus said, photographs she had taken of bank statements before he caught her, insurance documents, evidence, if she lived long enough to use it. James Crawford taught chemistry at Lincoln High School. 20 years of watching teenagers grow up. 20 years of learning to spot the signs. Ainsley Brennan had them all. Black eye that she said came from walking into a door. Weight loss that was not normal teenage dieting. This was starvation. The way she flinched when people moved too quickly. The bruises on her arms that she tried to hide with long sleeves in May. James filed a report, followed protocol, documented everything, took photographs with his phone, wrote a detailed account of observations, submitted it to Principal Davidson. "We need to be careful," Principal Davidson said. His office was air-conditioned, comfortable, safe. Marcus Whitmore is a respected member of this community, church deacon, soccer coach. We can't make accusations without proof. I have proof, the photographs. Those could be from anything. Teenagers are clumsy, and Ainsley's been through trauma. Her mother just died. Maybe she's acting out. This is not acting out. This is abuse. Mr. Crawford, the principal's voice hardened. I understand your concern, but we have to think about liability. If we make accusations and we're wrong, the school could be sued. Marcus could be destroyed. We need to be absolutely certain. 2 weeks later, Ainsley stopped coming to school. Marcus submitted homeschool paperwork. Everything looked legitimate: curriculum plan, educational goals, parental supervision schedule. James called Child Protective Services, filed his own report, followed up. The case was assigned to Robert Hayes, overworked, underpaid, 73 cases on his desk. Robert Hayes did what he could with what he had, which was not enough. Hayes arrived unannounced on a Wednesday morning, standard procedure. You do not give the abuser time to prepare, except Marcus had been expecting this, had been ready for months. The house was clean, well-maintained. Marcus answered the door in slacks and a button-down shirt. Reading glasses, coffee mug in hand, the picture of responsible guardianship. "Mr. Hayes," Marcus smiled, extended his hand. "Please, come in. I'm glad you're here. I've been worried about Ainsley." The guest bedroom on the second floor was perfect. Twin bed with fresh sheets, bookshelf with textbooks, desk with computer, educational posters on the walls. Everything a homeschooled teenager might need. "This is Ainsley's room," Marcus said. "She's been struggling since her mother passed. Depression, anxiety. We've been working through it together." Hayes looked around. Everything seemed fine. "May I speak with Ainsley?" "Of course." Marcus led him downstairs. "She's in the kitchen. Fair warning, she's been anxious around strangers lately. Part of the grief process. I hope you don't mind if I stay with her. She feels safer with me nearby." Ainsley sat at the kitchen table. She wore clean clothes. Her hair was brushed. She looked tired but not abused. Because the girl at the table was not the girl in the basement. This girl had been allowed to shower, to eat, to prepare for this exact moment. Hayes asked questions. Ainsley answered. Her voice was quiet, hesitant. She glanced at Marcus frequently. "Are you happy here?" Hayes asked. Ainsley looked at Marcus. He smiled at her. Patient, caring. "Yes," Ainsley whispered. "Do you feel safe?" Marcus's hand rested on the table, 2 inches from Ainsley's. Close enough to reach. Close enough to hurt later if she said the wrong thing. "Yes," Ainsley said again. Hayes saw nervousness, attributed it to grief, to trauma, to shyness around strangers. He did not see terror. "Is there anything you want to tell me? Anything at all?" Ainsley's eyes met Hayes's for 1 second. Please, she thought, please see me, please understand. But she said nothing, because Marcus would make her pay for speaking. And she knew that Hayes would leave, and she would still be here, and Marcus would remember every word. Hayes closed his notebook. "Everything looks fine," he said to Marcus. "I'll note in the file that home conditions are appropriate. If you have any concerns, please call." The door closed. Hayes left. Marcus waited until the car disappeared down the street. Then he turned to Ainsley. "Good girl," he said. "Now get back in the basement." The air vent near the ceiling carried sound. Ainsley discovered this by accident. Late at night, when she should have been sleeping, she heard Marcus's voice drifting down from the kitchen. He was on the phone, drunk. Voice slurred. Yeah, I know how it sounds. Pause. But the money's almost gone anyway. She turns 18 in November. Then I lose control of everything. Ainsley sat up, pressed her ear to the vent. No, I'm not suggesting anything. Marcus laughed. Dark, ugly. Look, accidents happen. Kids on the street overdose, freeze to death, get killed. If something happened naturally, Ainsley's blood went cold. The remaining 53,000 goes to me as next of kin. She has no other family. It's legal. It's clean. Pause. It's not like with Grace, that was actually murder. He said it casually, like discussing the weather. This is just letting nature take its course. I stop feeding her. I make winter hard enough. She either runs or gets sick. Either way, it solves itself. By spring, this is done. Memorial service. Sad story about troubled teen who ran away. And I can finally move on with my life. Ainsley heard him hang up, heard his footsteps, heard him pouring another drink. She sat in the dark and understood with perfect clarity. Her mother's death was not an accident. Marcus had killed Grace for $180,000. And now he was waiting for Ainsley to die so he could keep what was left. She had to escape, or she would be dead by spring. Marcus made a mistake. He always locked the basement door. Always. But this time, drunk, exhausted, distracted by gambling debts and the pressure of maintaining his respectable facade, he forgot. The padlock hung loose on the latch. Ainsley waited until 2 in the morning, until the house was silent, until she was certain Marcus was asleep. She climbed the stairs, tested each step. Silent, careful. The door opened. Freedom smelled like winter air and possibility. Ainsley grabbed her backpack, the notebook with evidence, Grace's stethoscope, one change of clothes, nothing else, no time for anything else. She left at 2:15 in the morning, ran until her lungs screamed, until her broken wrist, healed wrong, aching constantly, throbbed with every jarring step, until the suburbs gave way to downtown Cincinnati and the streets filled with people who did not look at her twice. She became invisible, and invisible meant safe. For now. Ainsley checked for breathing. Nothing. Checked for pulse. Nothing. Someone call 911. Bye. Her voice cracked, hoarse from months of cold exposure and not enough to eat. Her hands laced together, positioned on the girl's sternum. Muscle memory took over. Grace's teaching, the rhythm of 30 compressions, 2 breaths, repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The beat of staying alive. Stupid song. Perfect tempo. Ainsley's arms burned. 91 pounds, malnourished, weak, already sick. Every compression pushed her past limits she did not know she had. After 2 minutes, her vision blurred. After 4 minutes, she tasted blood from biting her lip to stay focused. After 6 minutes, tears streamed down her face because this girl could not die. Could not just die while everyone watched. Please, Ainsley sobbed between compressions. Please don't die. Please, I can't watch someone else die. The circle of phone cameras around her felt like judgment, like spectators at an execution, recording her desperation, recording her failure, because the girl still was not breathing. Minute 7, Ainsley's arms shook so badly she could barely maintain compressions. Her hands, scarred from rope burns, marked with an old cigarette burn on the back of her right hand, slipped with sweat despite the cold. Come on, she whispered. Come on, come on, come on. Minute 8, the girl's chest jerked, a gasp, wet and desperate in the most beautiful sound Ainsley had ever heard. Her eyes flew open, unfocused, terrified, but open. Ainsley sat back, shaking, sobbing, hands covered in coffee stains and sidewalk grit. 8 minutes of CPRs, 2 minutes longer than most people could maintain effective compressions. She had pushed past every physical limit her body had. Sirens in the distance, growing closer, and then a sound that drowned out everything else. The deep, thunderous roar of a motorcycle engine being pushed to its limits. Cole Dalton's Harley-Davidson exploded into the parking lot. He was off the bike before it fully stopped. 6'2", 240 pounds of leather and ink and protective fury. Road captain patches on his cut. Tattoos covering both arms. Scars across his knuckles. A road name like Reaper that should have terrified her. But he had given her his jacket, positioned his body between her and the crowd that was still filming. Made eye contact. Direct, steady, unwavering. Saw her. Actually saw her. Ainsley could barely speak. Her voice came out as a whisper. Ainsley, Ainsley Brennan. Ainsley. Cole nodded once. I'm Cole. My brothers call me Reaper. And I need you to understand something. He placed his right fist over his heart, then extended it toward Ainsley, palm up. The biker sign of deepest respect, of blood debt. You saved my daughter. That means you're under club protection now. That's not charity. That's blood debt. You understand? From the stretcher, the girl reached out weakly. Her hand found Ainsley's. Oxygen mask fogging with each breath she would not be taking if not for this stranger. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not walking away. Ainsley's notebook fell from her backpack as paramedics helped her up. Pages covered in Grace's handwriting from years ago. CPR instructions, anatomy notes, and newer entries, dates and times, words written verbatim. Evidence. Cole noticed the medical terminology, the careful documentation. The way Ainsley moved, favoring her left wrist, the shallow breathing of someone fighting infection. Ainsley. Cole's voice was quiet, gentle. Who hurt you? And Ainsley made a choice, the kind of choice that changes everything. Marcus Whitmore, she said. My mother's boyfriend. He killed her, and he's been waiting for me to die so he can keep the money she left me. The words came out in a rush, 9 months of silence breaking like a dam. Cole pulled out his phone, made a call that would change everything. Priest, he said, it's Reaper. I need every brother within 200 miles at the clubhouse. Now. A pause. We've got a 17-year-old, escaped abuse. Guardian killed her mother and stole her inheritance. She just saved Harper's life. Another pause. Yeah, every single one. Cole looked at Ainsley. The line went dead. Within 30 minutes, phones across Ohio began ringing. Text messages flying, emergency call-outs going to every patched member, every prospect, every brother who had ever worn the Hells Angels cut. And Ainsley Brennan, 91 pounds, 17 years old, invisible for 9 months, was about to become untouchable. University of Cincinnati Medical Center smelled like every hospital Ainsley had ever been in. Antiseptic and floor wax and the metallic tang of fear that clung to emergency rooms where people waited to hear if someone they loved would live or die. Ainsley sat in examination room 4, still wearing Cole Dalton's leather jacket. She had tried to give it back 3 times. Each time, Cole had gently pushed it back onto her shoulders. Keep it, he said, you'll need it. The jacket was warm, heavy. It smelled like motorcycle exhaust and leather oil and safety. Ainsley pulled it tighter around her frame. The sleeves hung past her hands. The hem reached her thighs. She disappeared inside it. Good. She wanted to disappear, but not the way she had been disappearing for 9 months. Not invisible, not forgotten. This was different. This was being protected, hidden behind leather and patches in the weight of a promise from a man who looked like he kept his promises. The door opened. A woman entered, mid-40s, grubs decorated with cartoon stethoscopes, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, kind eyes that had seen too much suffering but somehow had not gone hard. Ainsley? The woman's voice was gentle, professional. I'm Dr. Evelyn Pierce. Most people call me Doc. I'm going to examine you. Okay, just routine. Make sure you are healthy. Doc moved slowly, telegraph her movements. The way you approach something wounded. She saw the jacket, the Hells Angels patches. Her expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes, recognition maybe, or understanding. Cole's jacket, Doc said. He doesn't give that to just anyone. I tried to return it. I know. He won't take it back. That's how it works. He gave you his cut. That means something in this world. It means you're protected. Doc pulled on gloves, approached carefully. I need to examine you, document injuries. Take some photographs. Is that okay? Ainsley nodded. She was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. The examination took 45 minutes. Doc worked in silence mostly, gentle hands checking vitals, listening to lungs, examining the wrist that had healed wrong, documenting rope burns on Ainsley's wrists, the cigarette burn on her right hand, bruises in various stages of healing. When Doc finally spoke, her voice was tight with controlled anger. 91 pounds, she said, BMI 14.2. That's severe malnutrition. Your body is starting to shut down. She listened to Ainsley's chest again, frowned. Advanced pneumonia, untreated. Another few weeks and you would have been in organ failure. Doc examined the left wrist, manipulated it gently. Ainsley hissed in pain. This was broken months ago, never properly set, healed incorrectly. You'll need surgery eventually to correct it. But right now we need to address the malnutrition and infection. She photographed everything. Clinical, thorough, building a case with evidence that could not be disputed. The rope burns, Doc said quietly. These are consistent with prolonged restraint. Weeks, possibly months. The skin shows repetitive trauma. She looked at Ainsley, really looked. I knew your mother, Doc said. Grace Brennan. We worked together at University Hospital 15 years ago. She was one of the best nurses I ever knew. Calm in crisis, kind to everyone. Ainsley's throat closed. She had not spoken about her mother to anyone in so long, had not heard someone speak Grace's name with love and respect and memory. She talked about you all the time, Doc continued, showed me pictures. She was so proud of you, wanted you to be strong, independent, capable of taking care of yourself. Doc's hand covered Ainsley's. Warm, real. Grace would be so proud of what you did today, saving that girl. That took courage. That took everything your mother taught you about being brave when you're terrified. Ainsley broke, sobbed. 9 months of holding everything inside spilled out in Doc's examination room, while Cole stood guard outside and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Doc held her, let her cry, did not try to fix it or stop it or make it better with empty words. Some things could not be fixed, only endured. Cole waited in the hallway. His phone had not stopped ringing since he made the call to Priest. Text messages flooded in, brothers checking in, confirming, mobilizing. Wyatt Sullivan arrived first, 52 years old, former Cincinnati Police Department, Homicide Division. 20 years on the force before he retired early due to the corruption he witnessed. The cases that got buried because the suspect had money or connections or power. Wyatt, road name Bones because he was good at digging up skeletons, still carried himself like a cop, still knew the law inside and out, knew which rules could be bent and which lines could never be crossed. Reaper, Bones extended his hand. Cole took it. Brothers greeting brothers. Fill me in, Cole explained. The Seep, the skeletal girl, the notebook with the evidence. The story Ainsley had told in broken pieces about Marcus Whitmore and murder and 9 months on the street. Bones pulled out his notebook, started writing. Habit from 2 decades of taking statements. We need to do this right, Bones said. Legal, by the book, no shortcuts. Because if we mess this up, he walks. Declan O'Brien arrived 10 minutes later. 28, youngest patch member, former Army intelligence. Could pull digital evidence from devices people thought they had wiped clean. Could trace financial transactions through offshore accounts and dummy corporations and legal structures designed to hide money. Declan, road name Wire because he could wire into anything, carried a laptop bag and the kind of intensity that came from spending your 20s in war zones where information meant the difference between ambush and survival. What do we have? Wire asked. 17-year-old abuse victim. Guardian embezzled her inheritance. We need to prove it. We need evidence that will stand up in court. Wire nodded. Give me a name and a social security number. I'll find everything. The examination room door opened. Doc emerged. Her expression was grim. She needs to be admitted, Doc said. The pneumonia is advanced. The malnutrition is severe. She's maybe 2 weeks from organ failure. Can she give a statement first? Bones asked. Doc hesitated, then nodded. Keep it short. She's exhausted. They entered the examination room. Ainsley sat on the examination table, still wrapped in Cole's jacket, looking even smaller under fluorescent lights. A child playing dress-up in adult clothing. Except she was not playing, and she was not a child. She was 17 years old, and she had survived 9 months of hell, and she had saved a life this morning, despite barely holding on to her own. Ainsley, Bones said gently, I'm Wyatt Sullivan. I used to be a detective. I need to ask you some questions. Take your time. Tell me everything. Ainsley told her story. She started with Grace's death 14 months ago. The car accident that was not an accident. The brake failure on a 45-degree day with no ice. The insurance money. Marcus's appointment as trustee. She described the escalation, the isolation, the confiscated phone, the deleted contacts, the way Marcus systematically cut her off from anyone who might help. She talked about the basement, 8 by 10 feet, concrete floor, fed once a day, the cold, the dark, the way time stopped meaning anything. She recounted the failed rescue attempts, James Crawford filing a report that went nowhere, the CPS visit where she sat at the kitchen table and lied because Marcus's hand was 2 inches from hers, and she knew what would happen later if she told the truth. The police station where an officer called Marcus and sent her home. Her voice was steady, clinical, reciting facts like items on a grocery list, dissociation as survival. The only way to tell this story without breaking. Wire took notes. Bones recorded on his phone. Doc stood by the wall with arms crossed in murder in her eyes. Cole stood by the door, silent, but his jaw was clenched, hands curled into fists. Every word Ainsley spoke landed like a physical blow. He had seen evil before. In Fallujah, in Ramadi, had pulled the bodies of children from rubble, had watched insurgents use women as shields, had seen what humans could do to each other when they decided someone else was not human enough to matter. But this was different. This was America. Cincinnati, suburban neighborhood where people mowed their lawns and walked their dogs and went to church on Sunday. Where evil wore khakis and polo shirts and coached youth soccer. Where a 17-year-old girl could scream for help and be ignored by everyone who should have saved her. Ainsley reached into her backpack, the waterproof bag that held everything she owned. She pulled out the notebook. I documented everything, she said. Dates, time, exact quotes. I photographed bank statements before he took my phone. I have insurance documents. Records showing he's the trustee. She flipped to a specific page. Her handwriting was careful, precise. 3 weeks ago, I heard him on the phone, late night. He thought I was asleep. The air vent carries sound from the kitchen. She read verbatim, Marcus's voice, his words. The admission that Grace's death was murder. The plan to let Ainsley die in the street so he could keep the remaining $53,000. The room went silent, heavy, the kind of silence that happens when evil becomes real instead of theoretical. Bones closed his notebook, looked at Wire, then at Cole. We need Priest, Bones said, because this isn't just about protecting Ainsley. This is about making sure Marcus Whitmore never sees daylight again. The clubhouse sat on the east side of Cincinnati, brick building that used to be a warehouse before the club bought it 20 years ago, converted the main floor into meeting space, kept the industrial aesthetic, exposed beams, concrete floors, American flag on one wall, club colors on the other. By 8 that evening, 40 men packed the space. Local chapter, Cincinnati born and raised, veterans and mechanics and construction workers, men who had chosen Brotherhood over everything else. Silas Garrett, road name Priest, stood at the front of the room, 58 years old, former Army chaplain, silver beard trimmed neat, reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck. Tattoos of Bible verses ran down both forearms. The armor of God, the whole armor. He had counseled soldiers through hell and back, had held dying men while they whispered final confessions, had lost his own daughter Jessica 15 years ago to a boyfriend who beat her to death while neighbors heard screaming and did nothing. Every case since then had been personal. Priest looked at the brothers assembled, men he had ridden with for decades, men he trusted with his life. Brothers, Priest said, his voice carried authority without volume. We have a situation. he explained. Ainsley Brennan, 17 years old, 9 months on the street, guardian who killed her mother and stole her inheritance, who was actively waiting for her to die. She saved Reaper's daughter this morning, Priest said. Saved Harper's life with CPR she learned from her mother. Did it while she was dying herself. He paused. Let that sink in. This isn't a request for volunteers. This is a mobilization. I want every brother from Cincinnati and Columbus and Cleveland ready to roll by dawn tomorrow. We're going to investigate Marcus Whitmore. We're going to build a case that puts him in prison for the rest of his miserable life. And we're going to make sure Ainsley Brennan survives to see her 18th birthday. Priest looked around the room. 40 men, all wearing their cuts, all waiting. All in favor? For a moment, nothing, just the ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant sound of the traffic outside. Then every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. Not a single dissenting voice. 40 men voting unanimously to help a girl they had never met. Because that is what the word brother really means. By midnight, the text messages had reached every chapter in Ohio. By 2 in the morning, brothers were loading into trucks, preparing bikes, making arrangements. By dawn, the largest coordinated mobilization in Hells Angels, Ohio history would begin. 180 motorcycles, 3 chapters, 1 mission. Protect Ainsley Brennan, destroy Marcus Whitmore, prove that justice does not always come from badges. Sometimes it comes from leather and chrome and men who understand that protecting the vulnerable is sacred duty. Ainsley spent that first night in an apartment 3 blocks from the clubhouse. 2 bedrooms, furnished by brothers who had pulled resources together. Rent paid 6 months in advance. Not charity, Priest had insisted. Investment in family. Doc stayed with her, monitored her through the night. Refeeding syndrome was a real danger when malnourished bodies suddenly got normal food intake. Had to be done carefully, slowly. 6 small meals instead of 3 large ones. Protein, complex carbs, healthy fats. Your body forgot how to process food properly, Doc explained. We have to teach it again. Small portions, 6 times a day. It will feel like nothing at first, but in a month you will notice the difference. Ainsley ate because Doc told her to, not because she was hungry. She had stopped feeling hunger months ago. Her body had given up asking for what it knew it would not receive. She could not sleep. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow might be Marcus. Her brain knew she was safe. Her body had not gotten the message yet. Doc understood, did not try to force sleep, just sat with Ainsley in the dark and talked about Grace. Shared memories of working night shifts together. The time Grace saved a man's life with nothing but a pen and training, and the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly what to do when everything is falling apart. She would be proud of you, Doc said. What you did today. That took everything she taught you and more. Ainsley touched the stethoscope around her neck. Grace's stethoscope. The only thing she had taken when she escaped besides her notebook and 1 change of clothes. I wish she was here, Ainsley whispered. She is, in every choice you make, every life you save, every time you refuse to give up. That's Grace, that's her legacy living in you. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, Ainsley finally slept. Nightmares came, they always came, but when she woke screaming, Doc was there. Real, solid, proof that she was not alone anymore. Dawn broke over Cincinnati at 6:47 on February 11th. The temperature had dropped to 15 degrees overnight. Ice crystallized on power lines. 180 men standing there, not moving, not shouting, simply present. A wall of leather and ink and controlled power. Priest stood at the center. Cole beside him, brother not by blood, but by choice. Bones on his left, Wire behind them with equipment bags full of forensic tools. Neighbors emerged. Curtains parted. Doors opened. People in bathrobes and pajamas, staring at the army that had materialized on their street overnight. Everyone clear on the mission? Priest's voice carried without shouting. This is an evidence operation. We are not here for vengeance. We are here to build a case so airtight that Marcus Whitmore spends the rest of his life in a cage. We do this right. We do this legal. And we do this so thoroughly that every system that failed Ainsley has to answer for it. Heads nodded, grim faces. men who understood the assignment. Bones, wire, you're on documents. Doc, medical liaison. Reaper, you're with me. We're going door to door on this street, collecting witness statements from neighbors who saw things and said nothing. The operation began. Wire approached Marcus's house first. Not to break in, that would poison any evidence. To document. He walked the perimeter with a camera, photographing everything. The basement window so small a cat could barely fit through. The padlock visible on what should have been a pantry door. The new Ford F-150 in the driveway. $43,000 worth of Ainsley's inheritance sitting right there. Meanwhile, Bones knocked on 2845 Thornhill Drive, the house directly next door. Margaret Hayes answered, 67 years old, lived there 12 years, hair in curlers, bathrobe wrapped tight against the cold. Mrs. Hayes, Bones showed her his old detective credentials. Technically expired, but most people did not check. I need to ask you some questions about your neighbor, Marcus Whitmore. Margaret's eyes widened at the wall of motorcycles lining her street. I don't want any trouble. Ma'am, the trouble already happened. We're just documenting it now. Did you ever hear anything concerning from Marcus's house? Any sounds? Any incidents involving Ainsley Brennan? Margaret's hands shook as she gripped her doorframe. The girl, his stepdaughter. I heard her crying late at night, sometimes screaming. Then it would just stop suddenly. How often? Weekly, maybe more, for months. Margaret could not meet Bones's eyes. I thought about calling someone, police, CPS, someone, but Marcus is so respected. Deacon at church, coaches soccer. I didn't want to make assumptions, didn't want to accuse a good man of something if I was wrong. Did you ever see Ainsley? Once, maybe 8 months ago, she was getting mail from the mailbox, so thin, bruises on her arms. She looked at me like she wanted to say something. But then Marcus came out and she just froze, like a deer. He smiled at me, put his arm around her, took her back inside. The way she moved, though, like she was expecting to be hit. Bones wrote everything down. Mrs. Hayes, Ainsley has been homeless for 9 months, living on the streets. Marcus told everyone she ran away, but the truth is she escaped. He was starving her, locking her in a basement, stealing her inheritance. Did you ever suspect? Margaret's voice cracked. I knew something was wrong. I didn't want to be the one who made it worse. What if I was wrong? What if I called the police and ruined his life over nothing? Tears now, real remorse, the kind that comes too late to matter. But I wasn't wrong, was I? And that girl suffered because I chose to be comfortable instead of brave. Thank you for your honesty, ma'am. We'll need you to make an official statement. 3 doors down, Cole knocked on 2853 Thornhill Drive. James Crawford answered. 44 years old, former teacher at Lincoln High School. The one Ainsley had attended before Marcus pulled her out claiming homeschool. Mr. Crawford. Cole's voice was harder than Bones's, less cop, more combat veteran who had seen what cowardice cost. I understand you taught Ainsley Brennan 2 years ago. James's face went pale. Is Ainsley okay? She's alive, barely, no thanks to the system that was supposed to protect her. You filed a report about her, didn't you, when you noticed the bruising, the weight loss? James nodded slowly. 14 months ago, Ainsley came to school with a black eye, said she fell, but I've been teaching for 20 years. I know what abuse looks like. I filed a report with the principal, documented everything, photographs, observations, timeline. What happened to that report? Nothing, absolutely nothing. The principal called me into his office, said Marcus Whitmore was a respected member of the community, that we needed to be careful about making accusations without proof. 2 weeks later, Ainsley stopped coming to school. Marcus submitted homeschool paperwork. I called CPS to follow up. They said they had investigated and found no concerns. You didn't push harder. James's shoulders sagged. I should have. God, I should have. But I had my own job to protect, my own family to think about, and the system said she was fine. So I told myself maybe I had overreacted, maybe I had seen abuse where there was just a clumsy kid and an overworked guardian. He looked at Cole with eyes that held guilt and shame and the weight of knowing you failed someone who needed you. I've thought about Ainsley every day for a year, wondered where she was, if she was okay. And now you're telling me she was on the streets because I didn't fight hard enough. Mr. Crawford, Cole's voice softened slightly. You tried. That's more than most people did. But yes, the system failed, and we're going to document every single failure so it can't happen again. By 9 that morning, Bones and Cole had collected statements from 6 neighbors, each one a variation of the same theme. I saw something, I heard something. I didn't act because I didn't want to interfere, didn't want to be wrong, didn't want the inconvenience. 6 people who chose comfort over courage. 6 people who had to live with that now, a dum-dum. Wire spent the morning in the public records office downtown, pulling Marcus Whitmore's financial records, the ones that were public anyway. Property records showed the mortgage payoff, $143,000, paid in full in October, 6 months after Grace died. Money from Ainsley's trust. Vehicle registration for the new truck, Ford F-150, $43,000. Also from the trust. Court documents showing Marcus had petitioned for guardianship of Ainsley after Grace's death, approved without contest because there was no one left to contest it. But it was the insurance documents that stopped Wire cold. Tucked in the same folder with Ainsley's policy, the $180,000 that was supposed to insure her future was another policy, an older one, taken out on Grace Marie Brennan 8 years ago. Beneficiary, Marcus Anthony Whitmore. Payout amount, $180,000. Date of death listed, March 15th, 2023. Payout processed, May 20th, 2023. And underneath that, a note in the investigator's file that had been marked resolved. Accidental death. But the medical examiner had added a comment. Brake line failure suspicious, given vehicle age and maintenance records. Recommend further investigation. That recommendation had been ignored. Wire pulled out his phone, called Bones. We've got a pattern, Wire said. Grace Brennan's death wasn't an accident. Marcus killed her for insurance money, then positioned himself as Ainsley's guardian to steal her inheritance too. This is his second victim. Bones relayed that information to Priest. The club president closed his eyes, breathed slowly. When he opened them again, his voice was steel. Then we make sure there's no third. Wire spent the afternoon pulling digital evidence. With a warrant Bones had helped expedite through his old contacts at the prosecutor's office, Wire accessed Marcus's email server backups, deleted emails, messages Marcus thought were gone forever. Wire recovered them all, emailed to an attorney 6 months ago. Question: if trust beneficiary dies before age of majority, where does money go? Attorney response: to designated next of kin, typically guardian. Email to insurance broker 4 months ago, need to update beneficiary information on existing policies. But the smoking gun was a text message exchange Wire recovered from 3 weeks before Ainsley escaped. Marcus to unknown number. Problem solving itself, another month should do it. Then I'm free and clear. Response: you're playing with fire. Marcus: fire already played. This is just cleanup. Wire compiled everything into a report that would make prosecutors weep with joy. Every withdrawal Marcus had made from Ainsley's trust account. Every purchase. Every bill paid with money that was not his. Total amount embezzled, $127,000. Remaining balance, $53,000. Wire had also recovered the phone call, the one Ainsley had overheard through the air vent. Marcus talking to someone, drunk, admitting that Grace's death was murder, planning to let Ainsley die on the street. The recording was inadmissible in court, recorded without consent. But it did not matter. They had everything else. Financial records, emails, text, witness testimony, medical evidence. Marcus Whitmore was done. At 2:30 that afternoon, Bones walked up to Marcus Whitmore's front door. 180 motorcycles lined the street behind him. 180 men watching, waiting. Bones knocked. Firm, professional. Marcus answered, clean-shaven, reading glasses perched on his nose, wearing khakis and a polo shirt. There was grease on his hands, a wrench on the workbench visible through the garage door. He was fixing his truck. He looked confused, annoyed. like a man interrupted during a normal Saturday afternoon of home maintenance. Can I help you? Marcus Whitmore? Yes. I'm Wyatt Sullivan, former Cincinnati PD. I'm here regarding Ainsley Brennan. Bones watched Marcus's face carefully, looking for tells. We know she's been homeless for 9 months. We know about the basement room, the starvation, the stolen inheritance, and we know what you said on the phone about letting accidents happen to kids on the street. Marcus's expression did not change. Smooth, practiced. I don't know what you're talking about. Ainsley ran away 9 months ago. I've been searching for her, filed a missing persons report and everything. Funny, we pulled that report. You filed it 8 months ago, 1 month after she disappeared, and you marked her as a chronic runaway with behavioral issues. No Amber Alert, no active search, just a paper trail to cover yourself. Ainsley has problems, emotional problems stemming from her mother's death. I tried to help her, but she refused. We have bank records showing you've withdrawn $127,000 from her trust account, paid off your mortgage, bought a truck. We have witness statements from neighbors who heard Ainsley screaming. We have testimony from her former teacher who filed abuse reports that were ignored. We have medical evidence showing prolonged starvation and restraint. Bones stepped closer. And we have Ainsley's notebook where she documented word for word your phone conversation about waiting for her to buy so you could collect the remaining $53,000. Marcus's face went carefully blank. I'd like to speak to my attorney. That's your right. Bones stepped back. Officers. 3 Cincinnati PD cruisers pulled up. Detective Catherine Ashford stepped out. Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. 38 years old. Initially skeptical when Bones had brought her this case that morning. Not skeptical anymore. Marcus Anthony Whitmore. Her voice was clear, carrying across the quiet street. You're under arrest. She read him his rights right there in the driveway. Weapons drawn, voices loud and commanding, Marcus's face scraping against the hood of his truck. The same truck he bought with the Ainsley's money. The same hands that had broken Ainsley's wrist now wrenched behind his back. The neighbors came out to watch. Margaret Hayes, James Crawford, Sandra Mitchell, the woman from the church group who had rejected Ainsley at the coffee shop, now horrified as she recognized Marcus being arrested. All of them standing on their porches, watching justice arrive 9 months too late. 180 men bearing witness, making sure Marcus knew he had been seen, that his crimes would not be buried or forgotten or dismissed, that Ainsley Brennan mattered. And the men who protected her would not stop until she was safe. At the apartment, Ainsley watched from the window. Cole had called her personally, told her it was done. Marcus in custody, bail hearing Monday. Evidence overwhelming. She watched Marcus being put into the police car, watched him look around at the motorcycles, at the wall of men who had mobilized for a girl he thought no one would miss. Ainsley touched the stethoscope around her neck. "We got him, Mom," she whispered. "We got him." For the first time in 14 months, Ainsley believed that maybe, just maybe, she would survive this. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, the parts of her that Marcus had tried to kill along with her body. She was not alone anymore. She had brothers, a family, people who saw her and chose to fight. And Marcus Whitmore would spend the rest of his life in a cage knowing that the girl he tried to erase had become unforgettable. The courtroom smelled like old wood and furniture polish, and the accumulated weight of 1,000 verdicts delivered in this space over decades. Hamilton County Courthouse, built in 1915. Marble floors worn smooth by generations of people seeking justice or fleeing it. Ainsley sat in the front row. Harper Dalton beside her. Cole behind them. Silent presence. Solid. Real. 180 brothers filled the gallery. Not all of them. That would have been impossible. But enough. Enough to make a statement. Enough to make Marcus Whitmore understand that the girl he tried to erase had an army behind her now. April 9th. 2 months since that morning at Riverside Roastery. 2 months since Ainsley saved Harper's life and Cole Dalton gave her his jacket and everything changed. Ainsley had gained 16 pounds. 107 now. Still underweight, but no longer critical. Her pneumonia had cleared with antibiotics. Her hair had stopped falling out. Color had returned to her face. She looked 17 again instead of 14. She wore clean clothes, jeans that fit, a sweater Harper had given her. The stethoscope around her neck. Always the stethoscope. Grace's legacy worn like armor. But her hands still shook when she thought about facing Marcus. You don't have to do this, Cole had said that morning over breakfast. Their Tuesday ritual. Pancakes and coffee in the kind of comfortable silence that comes from trust. You can let the prosecutor speak for you. No, Ainsley's voice was quiet but steady. I need to say it. I need him to hear it from me. Harper had squeezed her hand. We'll be right there. Every second. Now they waited, the courtroom slowly filling. Marcus's attorney Bradley Kirkman arrived, 45. Expensive suit. The kind of lawyer who defended people with money and lost sleep over it because he was good at his job but not good at living with himself. Catherine Ashford entered. Prosecutor. She carried 3 file boxes of evidence, financial records, medical reports, witness statements, digital forensics, the accumulated proof of Marcus Whitmore's crimes documented so thoroughly that even the best defense attorney in Ohio could not explain it away. The bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Maria Costello presiding. Judge Costello entered, 62 years old, 30 years on the bench. She had seen every kind of evil humans could inflict on each other, had sentenced murderers and rapists and men who hurt children. But something about this case had gotten under her skin. Maybe because Ainsley was the same age as her granddaughter. Maybe because the system had failed so completely. Maybe because every adult who should have protected this girl had chosen comfort over courage. Judge Costello sat. The courtroom followed. Bring in the defendant. The side door opened. Marcus Whitmore entered in an orange jumpsuit, shackled. 3 weeks in county jail had changed him. He had lost weight. His face was unshaven. The polish was gone. The mask had slipped. This was Marcus without his disguise, without khakis and polo shirts and reading glasses and the carefully constructed facade of respectability. This was just a man, 40 years old, who had murdered his girlfriend for money and tried to kill her daughter for the rest. Marcus's eyes scanned the courtroom, found Ainsley, held her gaze. Ainsley did not look away. 2 months ago, she would have flinched, would have made herself small, would have tried to disappear. Not anymore. She stared back, steady, unflinching, because she was not his victim anymore. She was his survivor, and survivors do not flinch. Catherine Ashford stood. Your Honor, the state calls this sentencing hearing regarding Marcus Anthony Whitmore. The defendant has entered a guilty plea to 6 felony counts in exchange for dismissal of pending murder charges related to Grace Brennan's death. Judge Costello nodded. I've reviewed the plea agreement. Mr. Whitmore pleads guilty to felony child abuse, unlawful restraint, theft of funds held in trust, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. In exchange, the state agrees to a sentence of 8 years with no parole eligibility for 5 years. She looked at Marcus. Do you understand the terms of this agreement? Bradley Kirkman stood. My client does, Your Honor. Mr. Whitmore, do you wish to say anything before sentencing? Marcus remained silent. His attorney had advised him to say nothing. Anything he said could be used if Grace's case was reopened. Better to stay quiet, take the deal, survive. Judge Costello's expression hardened. Very well, Miss Ashford. Please present the state's summary. Catherine stood, opened the first file box, pulled out photographs. Medical evidence. Images of Ainsley at 91 pounds. Rope burns on her wrists. The X-ray of her improperly healed wrist. Documentation of prolonged starvation and abuse. She displayed them on the screen. Large. Unavoidable. The courtroom collectively inhaled. Ainsley Brennan was 16 years old when her mother died, Catherine said. Her voice was measured, professional, but anger simmered underneath. Grace Brennan was killed in what appeared to be a car accident, but evidence shows Marcus Whitmore tampered with her brake lines to collect a $180,000 life insurance policy. She clicked to the next slide. Financial records. He then positioned himself as guardian of Grace's daughter to access Ainsley's inheritance. $180,000 held in trust. Over the course of 8 months, Marcus embezzled $127,000, paid off his mortgage, bought a vehicle, settled gambling debts. Another slide. The basement window. the padlock. When Ainsley questioned the missing money, Marcus imprisoned her in a basement storage room, 8 by 10 feet, concrete floor. He fed her once daily, locked her in isolation for 18 to 20 hours at a time. He broke her wrist with a hammer when she attempted to seek help from police. Catherine's voice grew harder. Ainsley escaped in early February after overhearing Marcus tell someone on the phone that he was waiting for her to die in the street so he could collect the remaining $53,000. She survived 9 months homeless, 9 months in winter, weighing 91 pounds, suffering from pneumonia, rope burns, malnutrition so severe she was weeks from organ failure. She clicked to the final slide. The photograph of Ainsley performing CPR on Harper, taken by one of the bystanders who filmed instead of helping. On February 10th, Ainsley Brennan saved the life of Harper Dalton, performed CPR for 8 minutes. Despite her own body failing, despite 9 months of hell, despite every reason to walk past suffering the way people walked past her. Catherine turned to face Marcus. This man tried to kill a child, slowly, methodically, for money, and he almost succeeded. She sat down. Judge Costello looked at Bradley Kirkman. Does the defense wish to present mitigation? Kirkman stood. He looked tired, like a man going through motions he did not believe in. Your Honor, my client accepts responsibility for his actions regarding the financial crimes. He struggled with gambling addiction, made poor choices. He asked for leniency, for the opportunity for rehabilitation. Judge Costello's expression did not change. Does the defense have anything else? No, Your Honor. Very well. Judge Costello looked at Ainsley. Miss Brennan, would you like to make a victim impact statement? Ainsley stood. Her legs shook. Harper squeezed her hand once. Let go. Cole's presence behind her was solid. Grounding. She walked to the podium, placed her written statement on the surface. Her hands trembled. The paper rattled. She looked at Marcus, at the man who killed her mother, who tried to kill her, who would have succeeded if she had not been strong enough to escape. Ainsley began to speak. My name is Ainsley Brennan. I'm 17 years old. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. The courtroom was silent, everyone leaning forward, listening. Marcus Whitmore was supposed to protect me after my mother died. Instead, he killed her. She paused. Let that land. He killed her for $180,000. Then he positioned himself to steal mine. For 9 months, I lived in a basement, fed once a day, locked in darkness. He broke my wrist with a hammer when I tried to get help from the police. Ainsley's voice grew stronger, steadier. When I escaped, I spent 9 months on streets, in winter, sick, starving, invisible. Marcus told someone on the phone that he was waiting for me to die, that accidents happened to kids on the street, that the remaining money would go to him when I was gone. She looked directly at Marcus. His eyes had been on the table. Now they lifted, met hers. But I didn't die, Ainsley said. I lived. The courtroom was absolutely still. And on the worst morning of my life, when I had nothing left, a girl collapsed in front of me. Harper Dalton. She stopped breathing. And I had a choice. Ainsley's voice filled with emotion now. Real, raw. I could walk away, like everyone walked past me for 9 months. Like the church group who told me God helps those who help themselves. Like the neighbors who heard me screaming and did nothing. Like the systems that failed me 4 times. She drew a breath. Or I could act. My mother taught me that. Grace Brennan, the woman you killed. She taught me that you act when you're the only one who can. Even when you're scared. Even when you're dying yourself, you act. Tears now, running down Ainsley's face, but her voice did not break. I saved Harper that day, performed CPR for 8 minutes, and saving her saved me. Because Cole Dalton saw me. The Hells Angels saw me. They fought for me when no one else would. They made me visible when I had disappeared. Ainsley leaned forward, voice dropping, intimate, deadly. Marcus Whitmore, you tried to erase me. You tried to make me disappear. You failed. She straightened. I'm still here. I'm healing. I'm going to become an EMT like my mother. I'm going to save lives. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure no other child becomes invisible the way I was. She picked up her statement, held it, but she did not need to read anymore. The words came from somewhere deeper than paper. You took my mother. You took my childhood. You took 9 months of my life, but you didn't take my future. That's still mine, and I'm going to make it count. Ainsley returned to her seat. Harper hugged her immediately. Cole's hand rested briefly on her shoulder. Solid, proud. The gallery was silent, some people wiping tears, others stone-faced with controlled emotion, but everyone had heard. Ainsley Brennan had spoken, and her words had weight. Judge Costello removed her glasses, cleaned them slowly, put them back on. She looked at Marcus Whitmore with an expression of pure contempt. Mr. Whitmore, I've been a judge for 30 years. I've sentenced murderers and rapists and men who hurt children, but you are something special. Her voice was cold, precise. You wore the mask of respectability, church deacon, soccer coach, respected community member. You used that mask to commit calculated cruelty. You killed a woman who trusted you. Then you tortured her daughter, slowly, methodically, for money. She leaned forward. You are a predator of the worst kind, the kind who hides behind social standing, who weaponizes systems designed to protect, who counts on people's reluctance to believe that evil can wear khakis and a smile. Judge Costello opened the sentencing folder. The plea agreement calls for 8 years in state prison with no parole eligibility for 5 years. I accept that agreement. But I want you to understand something, Mr. Whitmore. She looked at him directly. Every day you spend in that prison, you will remember that you failed. You tried to kill Ainsley Brennan, and she survived. She thrived. She saved a life while you were taking them. She became everything you tried to prevent. Judge Costello picked up her gavel. 8 years. Lebanon Correctional Institution. No parole for 5 years. Restitution in the amount of $127,000 to be paid to Ainsley Brennan's trust fund. And I truly hope, that you spend every single day of those 8 years thinking about the 17-year-old girl who was stronger than you. The gavel fell. Marcus Whitmore was led away. He looked back once. At Ainsley. His face twisted with rage. Not remorse, not shame, rage that he had been caught. But Ainsley did not flinch. She held his gaze until he was gone. Then she turned to Harper and smiled. It was over. Spring became summer. April melted into May. May bloomed into June. Ainsley lived in the apartment near the clubhouse. Doc checked on her daily at first, then every few days, then weekly, monitoring her recovery, making sure the refeeding was going well, making sure she was healing. The weight came back slowly. 107 became 115, then 120. Her face filled out. Her hair grew thick again. The dark circles faded, but the nightmares persisted. Some nights Ainsley woke screaming, convinced she was back in the basement, that Marcus was coming down the stairs, that everything, the rescue, the arrest, the sentencing, had been a dream and she was still trapped. Those nights she would call Doc, or Harper, or sometimes Cole. They always answered. 3 in the morning did not matter. They answered. You're safe, they would say. You're in your apartment. Marcus is in prison. You're safe. And slowly, over weeks that became months, Ainsley started to believe it. In May, they operated on her wrist, pins and plates to reset the bone that had healed wrong. Dr. Pierce performed the surgery himself. Reconstructive work, delicate, precise. Ainsley woke up in recovery with her left arm in a cast. Cole sat in the chair beside her bed, reading a book, waiting. Hey, he said when her eyes opened. Surgery went well. Doc says 6 weeks in the West, then physical therapy, but you'll have full function back. Ainsley looked at the cast. Someone had already signed it. Harper's signature. Neat. Careful. Love you, sister. Over the next week, more signatures appeared. Doc, Priest, Bones, Wire, 40 brothers from the club, all leaving their mark, claiming her as family. By the time the cast came off in July, it was covered, a testament in ink to the people who had chosen her. Harper visited 3 times a week, sometimes more. They studied together, Harper helping Ainsley catch up on 2 years of missed education. Math, science, English, history. Ainsley absorbed it all like she was starving for knowledge, which she was. Her brain had been idle for too long. Now it woke up, remembered what it felt like to learn. "You're really good at this," Harper said one afternoon in June. They were studying biology, cellular respiration, complex, but Ainsley understood it immediately. "My mom used to teach me," Ainsley said. She touched the stethoscope around her neck. "When she had night shifts, she'd come home and we'd sit at the kitchen table and she'd explain things. Anatomy, physiology, how the body works." Harper looked at her textbook, then at Ainsley. "I've decided something," Harper said. "What?" "I'm going to become an EMT, like you're going to." Ainsley looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Yeah, you saved my life. I want to save people too. My heart condition. I could have died, but you knew what to do. If I can help one person the way you helped me." She trailed off, then smiled. "Plus, we'd make a good team, you and me. Partners." Ainsley felt something warm expand in her chest. Hope, purpose, future. "Partners," she agreed. They shook on it, formal, binding, the way children make promises that matter more than adult contracts. In August, Ainsley took the GED exam. She sat in a testing center with 40 other people, most of them older, adults who had dropped out of high school years ago and were trying to finish now. Ainsley was the youngest person in the room. The test took 6 hours. Math, science, social studies, language arts. Questions designed to prove you knew what a high school graduate should know. Ainsley finished early, turned in her test, walked out into summer sunshine, and waited. Results came 3 weeks later. She passed. All subjects, high scores in science, official high school equivalency achieved. Cole took Ainsley and Harper for ice cream to celebrate. Dairy Queen on Madison Road. They sat outside in the heat and ate chocolate dip bonbons and talked about the future like it was real, like it belonged to them. "Mom would be proud," Ainsley said quietly. "She would," Cole agreed. "You did something hard. You survived. And now you are building something from it. That's what Grace wanted for you." Ainsley looked at him, this man who had given her his jacket, who had mobilized an army, who had shown her that some adults keep their promises. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me." Cole smiled. "Thank you for not walking away." Then November 3rd arrived with cold wind and gray skies, Ainsley's 18th birthday. The clubhouse was decorated, streamers and balloons, a cake on the center table, chocolate with vanilla frosting. 75 people crammed into the space, brothers and their families. Harper and her friends from school, Doc, Bones, Wire, Catherine Ashford, Dr. Kim, Ainsley's therapist, even Judge Costello, who had approved the guardianship arrangement. Ainsley stood in the center. Overwhelmed, she wore jeans that fit her 120-pound frame. A Hells Angels t-shirt Harper had gotten her as a joke, but that Ainsley wore with pride. Her wrist was healed, barely a scar. Grace's stethoscope around her neck. She looked 17. Finally looked her age. Everyone sang happy birthday. Ainsley blew out candles, made a wish that for once felt possible instead of desperate. "I wish to save lives, like Mom did, like I saved Harper. I wish to matter." After cake, gifts appeared. Harper gave her an EMT textbook for when we start training together in January. Cole gave her a leather journal. "Write your story, your way, not the way Marcus tried to write it." Doc gave her a first aid kit with Ainsley Brennan, EMT, embroidered on the front. Then Priest approached, handed her an envelope. "Open it," he said. Ainsley opened it. Inside was a bank statement. Trust account in her name. Balance, $96,847. She looked up, confused. "The original $53,000 that Marcus didn't spend," Priest explained, plus the $127,000 in restitution, plus $42,000 that brothers from Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky chapters donated. Not charity, investment in family. Ainsley's throat closed. She could not speak. "That's yours," Priest continued, "for college, for trade school, for whatever future you want to build. And there's more. He nodded to Doc. Doc stepped forward. University of Cincinnati Medical Center is offering you a paid EMT trainee position. Starts January. You'll work alongside paramedics. Learn on the job, $15 an hour during training, 22 after certification. Ainsley's vision blurred. Tears, happy ones, the kind she had forgotten existed. Just like your mom, Doc said. Grace started the same way. Trainee, then nurse, then one of the best we had. You're following in her footsteps. The toast came next. Cole stood, raised his glass, non-alcoholic. Ainsley was still technically a minor for another few hours. To Ainsley Brennan, Cole said. His voice carried, strong, certain. Who taught us that heroes don't look like we expect? Who saved my daughter? Who survived hell? Who chose courage every day? Happy 18th birthday. You're free now, truly free. The room erupted. To Ainsley. She looked around at faces that had become family, at the brothers who had mobilized for her, at Harper, who had become her sister, at the future that stretched ahead like an open road. For the first time in 14 months, Ainsley believed she deserved it. January 15th arrived cold and clear. Ainsley's first day as an EMT trainee. She wore the uniform Doc had given her. Navy blue, paramedic patches on the shoulders, Grace's stethoscope visible beneath. Her partner was Marcus Lee, not Marcus Whitmore. Different Marcus, 35, 10 years as a paramedic, patient, good at teaching. He had read Ainsley's file, knew her story, treated her like a professional anyway. First day's always rough, Marcus Lee said as they started their shift. You'll see things, hard things, but you'll learn. Just remember, we're here to help, that's all. Help whoever needs it. The call came at 2 in the afternoon. Unit 17, respond to Riverside Roastery, female, approximately 16 years old, unresponsive. Ainsley's blood went cold. Riverside Roastery. The same place where she had saved Harper. The same wall she had sat against for months. The same location where everything changed. You okay? Marcus Lee asked. Ainsley swallowed, nodded. Let's go. They arrived in 8 minutes, sirens clearing traffic. Ainsley's heart pounded the entire drive. The scene was identical. Same brick wall, same crowd of people, same winter cold. But the girl on the ground was different. 16 years old, oversized hoodie, duct tape shoes, 90 pounds at most, unconscious, hypothermia, possibly overdose, rope burns on her wrists, recent. Ainsley dropped to her knees. Training took over. Check pulse. Weak but present. 40 beats per minute. Check breathing. Shallow. 8 breaths per minute. Severe hypothermia, Ainsley said. Possible drug involvement. We need warm blankets, oxygen, IV fluids. Marcus Lee worked beside her. Efficient, professional. Starting the IV. Applying oxygen. Wrapping the girl in thermal blankets. In the ambulance, the girl started to wake. Warming up. Fluids working. Her eyes open. Terrified. Confused. She saw Ainsley in the EMT uniform and flinched. Hey, Ainsley said gently. You're safe. You're okay. I'm Ainsley. I'm an EMT. We're taking you to the hospital. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Please don't call him. Ainsley's chest tightened. She knew. She knew exactly what that meant. Who's him? Ainsley asked softly. Who are we not calling? My stepdad. He'll be so angry. Ainsley looked at the rope burns, at the too thin frame, at the terror in eyes too young to hold that much fear. What's your name? Rachel. Rachel Donnelly. Okay, Rachel, listen to me. We're not calling anyone you don't want us to call, but I need to know, are you safe at home? Rachel's silence was answer enough. At the hospital, they stabilized her, admitted her. Ainsley pulled Marcus Lee aside. I need to make a call. She called Bones, explained. Another girl. Another. 16. Rope burns. Terrified of her stepdad. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Bones said. 2 weeks later, Ainsley visited Rachel in the hospital before discharge. Rachel was being placed in foster care. Temporarily. CPS investigation was open, this time with new protocols, new rules, mandatory solo interviews, follow-up visits. Riley's Law, Catherine Ashford had called it, named after the case that exposed every system failure. The law had passed in December. Too late for Ainsley, but not too late for others. "Hey, Rachel," Ainsley said. She sat in the chair beside the bed. "I wanted to check on you." Rachel looked at her, at the EMT uniform, at Grace's stethoscope. "You saved me, Pri," Rachel said. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" Ainsley thought about the church group that told her God helps those who help themselves, about the neighbors who heard her scream and did nothing, about the systems that failed 4 times. "Because someone once told me that you act when you're the only one who can," Ainsley said. "My mom taught me that, and I promised her I'd try, no matter what." She pulled out a card, wrote her number on it, added the Hells Angels Clubhouse contact. "I was you," Ainsley said, 11 months ago, homeless on that same street, invisible. Nobody helped. Rachel stared. "You were?" "Yeah, my stepdad locked me in a basement, starved me, stole my inheritance. I escaped, lived on the street for 9 months. Then one morning I had to choose whether to help someone who needed it or walk past like everyone walked past me." Ainsley held out the card. "I chose to help, and it saved both of us. You're not alone, Rachel. People see you now. We won't let you disappear." Rachel took the card, held it like a lifeline. "Thank you," she whispered. Ainsley stood to leave. Harper appeared in the doorway, also in EMT uniform. She had started training 3 weeks ago, just like they planned. They stood together. Two girls who had survived, who had chosen to save others. "We've got your back," Harper said to Rachel. "All of us." And Rachel believed them, because sometimes the people who have been broken are the ones who know how to put others back together. February 10th, anniversary of the day everything changed. Ainsley sat at a table in Riverside Roastery, 20 years old now, 2 years as a certified EMT, Harper across from her, 18, fresh out of training, starting her career. They came here every year, same day, same table, to remember. The plaque on the wall was new, bronze, mounted near the entrance where everyone could see, in honor of Ainsley Brennan, who taught us that heroes don't always look like we expect. Sometimes they look like someone everyone else stopped seeing. February 10th. You act when you're the only one who can. Ainsley touched it every time she visited, remembered, honored the moment that changed her life. 2 years, Harper said. Can you believe it? Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes like a lifetime ago. You saved me that day. Ainsley smiled. And you saved me right back. Your death, the club, they gave me family. We're sisters now, you know that, right? Yeah, sisters. They drank their coffee, talked about work, about the lives they had saved, about the future that stretched ahead. Ainsley's radio crackled. Unit 17, respond. Female, 17 years old, cardiac arrest, Main Street and 5th. Ainsley stood. Harper followed. Time to save someone, Harper said. They ran to the ambulance, lights and sirens, racing through Cincinnati streets to help someone who needed it. Ainsley felt Grace's stethoscope bounce against her chest, felt the weight of purpose, of meaning, of a life built from ashes. At the scene, she dropped to her knees beside the victim, started compressions. 30 and 2, 30 and 2, the rhythm Grace had taught her. The rhythm that saved Harper, the rhythm that had become Ainsley's purpose. The girl gasped back to life. Ainsley sat back, smiled. Another life saved, another person who would get to see tomorrow. This is what Mom meant, Ainsley thought. This is purpose. Later that night, Ainsley rode her motorcycle through Cincinnati streets. She had learned to ride. Cole teaching her, patient, careful, until she was ready for her own bike. Now she rode beside Cole and Harper. 3 bikes, family. Behind them, the club followed. 180 strong. Brotherhood, the kind that mobilizes when someone needs help. The kind that never walks past suffering. Ainsley pulled over at a lookout. The city spread below, lights reflecting off the Ohio River. Beautiful. peaceful. She stood at the edge, let the wind blow through her hair, let herself feel the moment. Cole approached, stood beside her, silent companion. "You did good today," he said finally. "Learn from the best. Mom taught me the skills. You taught me it was okay to trust again. You taught yourself to survive. That was all you." Ainsley looked at him, this man who had seen her when she was invisible, who had given her his jacket and his protection and his time. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. Thank you for not giving up, for fighting, for showing us what courage looks like." Harper joined them, put her arms around both of them, three people who had found each other in the worst moment and built something beautiful from it. Ainsley closed her eyes, felt the weight of the stethoscope. The leather jacket Cole had given her that first day, she still had it, wore it when she rode. The notebook with evidence that had put Marcus away. The trust fund that had been restored. The lives she had saved. 47 lives in 2 years. 47 people who got to go home because Ainsley knew CPR. Because Grace had taught her. Because she had promised to act when she was the only one who could. Marcus Whitmore sat in Lebanon Correctional. 3 years into an 8-year sentence. No parole for 2 more years. And when he got out, Ainsley would be 23. Established, safe, beyond his reach forever. He had tried to erase her. Instead, she had become unforgettable. Ainsley's voiceover began. Her voice, her story, reclaimed. "My name is Ainsley Brennan. I'm 20 years old. 2 years ago, I was dying on Cincinnati streets. Invisible. 91 pounds. Already gone. Visuals of her now, healthy, strong, alive. One morning, I had to choose. Walk past suffering the way people walk past me. Or kneel in it. Fight for someone when I was barely fighting for myself." Images of the CPR, of Harper gasping back to life, of Cole giving his jacket, of 180 motorcycles arriving like thunder. I chose to kneel, and it saved 2 lives, Harper's and mine. Images of the investigation, the arrest, the sentencing, Marcus being led away. Marcus Whitmore killed my mother, tried to kill me, waited for me to die so he could keep money that wasn't his. The system failed me 4 times. Neighbors heard me scream and did nothing. Teachers filed reports that went nowhere. Police sent me back to my abuser. Image of Cole, of Priest, of the Brotherhood. But Cole Dalton saw me. The Hells Angels saw me. They fought when everyone else walked away. They made me visible when I had disappeared. Images of Ainsley in EMT uniform. Responding to calls, saving lives. Now I see others, the invisible ones, the forgotten, the ones society walks past. I'm an EMT. I've saved 47 lives in 2 years. Rachel Donnelly was the first. A 16-year-old homeless girl with rope burns on her wrists. She was me 11 months earlier. Image of Rachel, now 17. Healthy, safe. Rachel is safe now. The cycle broke because someone saw her, because someone chose not to walk past. My final images. Ainsley riding with Cole and Harper, the 3 of them leading 180 bikes through Cincinnati. My mother taught me, you act when you're the only one who can, even when you're scared, even when you're dying, you act. Close-up of Ainsley's face, strong, healed, alive. I'm still acting, still kneeling, still refusing to walk past, because sometimes the person everyone overlooks is exactly the one who changes everything. Wider shot, the city below, the bikes behind her, the future ahead. I was homeless, broken, invisible. Marcus Whitmore tried to erase me. Pause. I'm still here. Final image, Ainsley turning to camera, slight smile, Grace's stethoscope visible, Cole's jacket on her shoulders, Hell's Angels patch proud on the leather. And I'm just getting started. The screen fades to black. Text appears. Ainsley Brennan, EMT, age 20, saved 47 lives. Harper Dalton, EMT, age 18, saved 12 lives. Rachel Donnelly, saved 1, age 17. Grace Brennan, ER nurse, 1985-2023, saved countless lives. Remembered. Marcus Whitmore, serving 8 years. Lebanon Correctional Institution. In 2024, Riley's Law was passed in Ohio, requiring mandatory solo interviews with minors in abuse investigations and follow-up visits within 30 days. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. You are not invisible. Someone sees you. The final shot is of Grace's stethoscope, worn, loved, still saving lives through her daughter. Then darkness? End. The last good man was not one man. It was a brotherhood. It was a girl who refused to stay invisible. It was a mother's legacy living in her daughter's hands. It was the choice to kneel when everyone else walked past. That is what heroes look like. Not uniforms, not badges, not capes, just people who decide that someone else's life matters. And then prove it. Ainsley Brennan proved it 47 times. And she is still proving it every day, every life, every time she refuses to walk past.